The great station of Orion's Gate floated in the dark sea of stars like a shining city. Its towers reached upward, covered in light, and its long docking rings carried ships from 100 different worlds. Voices of many races filled its halls, each with their own language and sound. Traders argued over prices, captains gave commands, and travelers hurried to their next destination. Life moved fast, and no one seemed to have time to notice the small figure sitting quietly in one corner of the main terminal. She was a little alien girl, no more than 8 or 9 years old in human measure, though her exact age was a mystery. Her skin carried a soft silver tone that caught the light in strange ways. Her hair was dark and fine, falling around her face like silk. Her large eyes were brighter than most, almost glowing with a quiet light, but her gaze stayed low, fixed on the floor. She had no family beside her, no friends to call her name. People passed her without stopping. Some noticed her and shook their heads. Others whispered about where she might have come from. A few gave her suspicious looks, muttering about trouble. "She is one of the last from a broken world," a merchant whispered to his companion as he hurried past. "Or a child left behind because no one wanted her," the other replied. The girl heard every word, though she did not lift her head. She had been sitting there for hours, maybe longer. The workers of the station had placed her in the corner after finding her near the docking bays, lost and alone. They had contacted many offices, but no one had claimed her. No species stepped forward to say she belonged to them. No one offered to take her in. Now the officials argued over her future. "She cannot stay here," one of them said firmly. "This station is not an orphan house. We do not take responsibility for abandoned children." "Then send her to the outer colonies," another replied. "There are institutions there. She will be fed at least. And what if she carries something dangerous?" A third argued. "We don't even know what she is. She could be a risk to us all." The debate went on, but it changed nothing for the girl. She simply sat with her knees pulled close to her chest, arms wrapped around them. Her face stayed calm, though her heart was heavy. She understood more than the officials thought. She knew she was unwanted. She remembered fragments of her past, shadows of fire, voices calling out, and then silence. A hand had once held hers, warm and strong, but that hand was gone now. She had traveled in a ship, left in the busy port, and then she was alone. No one explained why. No one told her if she would ever see her family again. Every time the station lights shifted, she lifted her head slightly, hoping someone would come for her. But the crowds only moved faster, leaving her behind. Hours turned into a full day. Food was brought, though she ate only a little. Water was placed beside her, though she touched it rarely. She seemed to live in a quiet bubble, cut away from the life around her. Her eyes, though, kept searching for something or perhaps someone. Then, as the station entered another busy cycle, a new figure appeared. He was a human, tall and steady, walking with a calm step through the crowd. His clothes were simple: a traveler's jacket, boots that carried dust from many worlds, and a small pack slung across his shoulder. His face was lined from years of work and war, though his eyes were gentle, carrying a kind of patience rare in such a place. The human slowed when he noticed her. While others passed quickly, his gaze lingered. He saw not only a lost child, but also the way she sat, the way her hands held tightly together as if afraid to let go, and the way her eyes lifted for just a moment when she felt his presence near. He asked the officials nearby, "Who is she?" One of them sighed, shaking his head. "An abandoned child. No record of her people, no family to claim her. We have tried to find a place for her, but no one wants the burden. She has been here for 2 cycles already," another added. "We cannot keep her. Soon she will be moved to the colonies, to some distant home where she may or may not survive." The human looked back at the girl. She did not look away. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and something unspoken passed between them. It was not fear, not suspicion, but something closer to recognition. He stepped closer and crouched down so his face was level with hers. "Hello," he said softly. The girl blinked. Her lips parted as if she wanted to answer, but no sound came out. Instead, she looked at him carefully, as if trying to decide whether he was like all the others or someone different. The human gave a small smile. "You've been waiting a long time, haven't you?" The officials interrupted quickly. "Sir, you cannot speak with her like that. She is not registered. You do not know what she is." But the human ignored them. He kept his voice calm and steady. "Are you hungry?" Slowly, the girl gave a small nod. He reached into his pack and pulled out a simple food bar wrapped in silver foil. He unwrapped it halfway and offered it to her. She hesitated, then reached out with small hands. When she took it, she held it carefully as though it was the first gift she had received in a long time. The human sat back on his heels and watched her eat. She took small bites, cautious but grateful. Her eyes softened, and for the first time that day, her face showed a hint of comfort. The officials grew restless. "This is highly irregular," one said sharply. "You cannot simply—" The human stood and faced them. His voice was calm but firm. "Then let me take her." The room went quiet. The officials stared in disbelief. "You would claim her? A child no one wants? A species we do not even recognize?" "Yes," he replied simply. "Why?" one asked, almost in anger. The human's eyes went back to the girl, who now looked at him with wide, uncertain hope. "Because she should not be left alone. Because she deserves a chance. And because sometimes it is enough to say, 'I'll take her.'" The officials exchanged glances. Some shook their heads, others muttered about rules and risks, but none stepped forward to stop him. They had all refused responsibility, and here stood someone willing to accept it. The girl rose slowly to her feet. She clutched the half-eaten food bar in one hand, her other hand hanging nervously at her side. The human bent down again and extended his hand toward her. For a moment, she did not move. She looked at his hand as if it was a test. Then, with a trembling motion, she placed her small hand into his. The human's fingers closed gently around hers. The officials sighed and began recording the decision into their systems, though they muttered doubts under their breath. None of that mattered to the girl. What mattered was the warmth in the human's grip, the strength in his presence, and the quiet promise in his eyes. For the first time since she had been left behind, she felt she belonged somewhere. She did not know who he was, where they would go, or what would come next. But she knew this: she was no longer unwanted. The human gave a small nod to the officials, then turned and began to walk with her beside him. She matched his steps, holding tightly to his hand, afraid to let go. Behind them, the noise of the station rose again. Voices calling, ships departing, traders shouting. But to the little alien girl, the world had changed. She was not just another forgotten child in the crowd. She was chosen. She was wanted, and with that, their journey began. The human walked with the little alien girl through the busy halls of Orion's gate station. Around them, thousands of beings passed in constant movement. Tall insect-like traders carried crates, scaled warriors in shining armor marched in formation, and gentle scholars from distant worlds floated with their gravity belts. Yet among all these powerful and busy people, the sight of a single human holding the hand of a small silver-skinned girl drew many curious looks. Some stared in disbelief. Some whispered quietly to their companions. Others simply shook their heads. In a place where no one wanted her, the girl had suddenly found herself beside someone who did. The human noticed the stares but paid no attention to them. His steps were steady, his grip firm yet gentle around the girl's hand. She stayed close to him, almost pressing against his side, afraid that if she let go, he would vanish like all the others. They stopped at a small waiting area near the exit tunnels. The human crouched down so that he was eye level with her again. "What is your name?" he asked softly. The girl looked at him carefully. For a long moment she said nothing, as if she was afraid of speaking. Then in a quiet voice she whispered, "Lyra." The human smiled faintly. "Lyra, that's a beautiful name." Her lips curved slightly, the beginning of a shy smile, though it vanished quickly as she glanced around at the station guards approaching them. One of the officials from earlier stepped forward, holding a tablet filled with glowing records. "Human traveler," the official said sternly. "We require confirmation. Are you certain you wish to claim responsibility for this child?" "Yes," the human answered without hesitation. "You must understand the weight of this choice," the official pressed. "She has no registered species, no medical record, no known origin. For all we know, she could be dangerous, or useless, or both." The human's eyes narrowed, though his tone remained calm. "She is not useless. She is a child." The official sighed, clearly impatient. "You humans are always strange. Most species place value in lineage, strength, or skill. You seem to take in whatever is left behind." The human gave a small shrug. "Sometimes what is left behind only needs someone to believe in it." The official frowned, but entered the data into the tablet. "Very well. By station law, if no one else claims her, you may assume responsibility. But know this. Once you take her, there is no returning her here. She will be your duty no matter what comes. The human nodded. I understand. Lyra watched this exchange quietly. She did not fully grasp the rules of the station, but she understood the important part. This man, this human, was choosing her. Out of all the voices that had turned away, his was the one that said yes. The official tapped the screen and stepped back. Then it is done. May fortune guide you, human. You will need it. The human rose and took Lyra's hand once more. She looked up at him, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and wonder. Come on, he said gently. Let's get you something to eat. They walked through the station's crowded markets. Bright stalls lined the wide corridors filled with food from across the galaxy. Strange fruits glowed with natural light. Bowls of steaming broth carried scents both sweet and sharp. Metal trays displayed cooked creatures with too many legs for human comfort. Lyra's nose twitched at the mix of smells. She had eaten little in the past days, only dry rations given by officials. Now the scent of warm food made her stomach twist with hunger. The human noticed. What do you like? He asked. Lyra hesitated. I don't know. He thought for a moment, then guided her to a small stall run by a human vendor. 2 meals, he said, placing a few credits on the counter. Simple, no spice. The vendor gave him a knowing look and began preparing the food. Soon he handed them 2 bowls of rice and roasted vegetables, steaming and warm. The human passed 1 bowl to Lyra, who held it carefully, her eyes shining as if she had never seen such a gift before. Eat slowly, he reminded her. She nodded and began eating, each bite careful but full of quiet joy. The human ate beside her, though most of his attention stayed on her. He could see how thin she was, how her small hands trembled slightly, how her eyes darted nervously whenever someone came too close. She had lived too long with fear, and now she carried it like a shadow, but she also had strength. He could see it in the way she straightened her shoulders and the sharp focus of her gaze. She was not just surviving. She was watching, learning, remembering. When the bowls were empty, the human leaned back slightly. Lyra, he said softly, do you know where you come from? Her face darkened. She shook her head. I remember fire, and running, and then nothing. Her voice trembled and she lowered her eyes. The human did not press further. He simply placed a hand on her shoulder. That's all right. You don't need to remember right now. What matters is where we go from here. Lyra looked up at him, her voice small but filled with hope. Where will we go? The human smiled faintly. Wherever we need to. I travel a lot. You'll come with me. We'll figure it out together. Her eyes widened. You mean, I can stay? Of course, he said. I told them already. I'll take you. For a long moment she said nothing. Then very slowly her lips curved into a true smile, small but real. Later that evening they returned to the docking bays. The human ship waited among the many vessels, not large or powerful, just a sturdy freighter patched together from years of work. Its hull carried scratches from meteor dust and burn marks from old battles, but it was alive, humming softly with steady engines. Lyra stopped at the base of the ramp, staring up at the ship. To her it looked like a new world. The human glanced at her. She's not much to look at, but she's home. Want to see inside? She nodded quickly. Inside, the ship was small but warm. The main cabin carried 2 chairs, one for the pilot and one for the co-pilot. A narrow corridor led to a kitchen unit, a small bunk room and storage compartments. It was simple, but it was safe. The human showed her to a small bed in the corner of the bunk room. It's yours now, he said. Lyra touched the blanket carefully as if testing whether it was real. Her throat tightened and for the first time tears filled her eyes. She quickly wiped them away, not wanting him to see, but he noticed anyway. You're safe here, he said gently. No one is going to take you away. Lyra's voice shook. Why did you choose me? No one else did. The human sat on the edge of the bunk and looked at her with steady eyes. Because I saw you. Everyone else saw a problem. I saw a child who needed someone. Sometimes that's all it takes. She stared at him, her small hands clutching the blanket. Slowly, she whispered, Thank you. He gave a soft smile. Rest now. Tomorrow we start fresh. Lyra lay down, still holding the blanket close. Her eyes grew heavy, but her heart felt lighter than it had in many days. For the first time since she had been left behind, she felt she belonged. As the ship hummed quietly, the human sat nearby, watching over her. He knew the road ahead would not be simple. The officials had been right about one thing. There was risk. He did not know what Lyra's past held, or why she had been abandoned. But he had made his choice, and he would not turn back. Somewhere deep in the galaxy, forces might be searching for her. Questions would surely rise about her strange origin. But none of that mattered tonight. What mattered was a promise. A simple promise spoken in a crowded station. Stronger than any law or warning, "I'll take her." And with those words, a bond had been formed. One that would soon be tested in ways neither of them could yet imagine. The freighter known as the Wayfarer's Hope drifted out of Orion's Gate Station, its engines glowing faintly as it entered the vast darkness of space. Stars stretched endlessly in all directions, and the only sound inside the ship was the steady hum of machinery. Lyra sat strapped into the co-pilot's seat, her wide silver eyes staring out the window. She had never been this close to the stars before. She pressed her small hands against the glass as if she could touch the scattered lights beyond. Beside her, the human pilot adjusted controls with calm precision. His name was Captain Elias Kane, though he rarely used his title. To most, he was simply Kane. Years of travel had left lines on his face and a tiredness in his shoulders, but there was a quiet strength in his movements. He glanced at Lyra every so often, watching the way she leaned forward, fascinated by every flicker of light. "You'll get used to it," Kane said gently. "First time feels like magic. After a while, it just feels like the road under your feet." Lyra turned to him. "But it is beautiful," she whispered. Kane smiled faintly. "That it is." The days that followed were simple but new for Lyra. Life aboard the Wayfarer's Hope was not grand, but it was steady. Kane taught her routines. In the morning, he showed her how to prepare breakfast from the ship's food stores. At first, she struggled with the controls of the heating unit, pressing the wrong buttons and producing burnt toast. Kane only laughed softly, guiding her hands until she got it right. "You'll get better," he assured her. She nodded seriously, determined to learn. In the afternoons, Kane gave her lessons. He showed her human letters on a data pad, teaching her to read and write. Lyra's memory was sharp. Once she saw a word, she rarely forgot it. Within days, she could read small sentences. Kane noticed how quickly she absorbed knowledge, far faster than most children her age. "You're clever," he told her one evening. "Your mind works quick." Lyra lowered her gaze shyly but felt warmth in her chest at his praise. No one had ever called her clever before. At night, when the ship grew quiet, Lyra sometimes woke with tears in her eyes. Shadows of fire and running footsteps haunted her dreams. She would sit up clutching the blanket tightly. Once she thought she saw Kane sleeping in the chair outside her small room. When she whispered his name, he stirred immediately and came inside. "Bad dream?" he asked. She nodded, unable to speak. He sat on the edge of her bed and said softly, "You're safe here. Lyra, nothing can hurt you on this ship." She listened to his voice until her fear eased, then fell asleep again. Kane stayed in the chair until morning, keeping his quiet watch. As days turned into weeks, Lyra began to change. Her thin frame gained a little strength from regular meals. Her eyes, once filled with fear, now carried sparks of curiosity. She asked questions about the ship, the stars, and the strange buttons on the control panel. Kane encouraged her questions, answering patiently. "Why does the ship hum all the time?" she asked one day. "That's the core," Kane explained. "It keeps us moving, keeps the air flowing, keeps the lights on. As long as you hear that hum, we're alive and safe." Lyra nodded seriously, as if storing the information carefully. But not everything was ordinary. Sometimes strange things happened around her. One afternoon, as she tried to carry a toolkit across the cabin, it slipped from her hands. Instead of crashing to the floor, the box floated for a brief second before dropping softly. Lyra stared at it in shock, her breath caught. Kane noticed. "Did you do that?" he asked. I don't know," Lyra whispered, trembling. "It just happened." He crouched beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Don't be afraid. Sometimes we carry more inside us than we understand. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together." Lyra looked at him, expecting anger or fear, but found only calm reassurance. Slowly, she nodded. One evening, as Kane worked on ship repairs, Lyra sat nearby watching. Sparks flew from his welding tool, lighting his face in orange glow. "Why are you kind to me?" she asked suddenly. Kane paused, lowering the tool. What do you mean? No one else wanted me, she said softly. The officials, the people on the station, they looked at me like I was nothing. But you took me. Why? Kane set the tool aside and wiped his hands. He thought for a long moment before answering. Because I saw someone who needed a chance, he said simply, and because no one deserves to be left alone. Lyra's throat tightened. She whispered, I was afraid you would change your mind. He shook his head firmly. Not a chance. Something shifted in her heart then. For so long she had carried the heavy weight of being unwanted, but now Kane's words began to lift it away. The fragile bond between them grew stronger in small moments. When she laughed for the first time at one of his clumsy cooking mistakes, Kane felt a quiet pride. When she managed to read a full passage from the data pad without error, he applauded softly, and Lyra glowed with joy. But the bond was tested, too. One day, while adjusting a navigation panel, Kane gave Lyra a simple task: hold down a lever while he checked the circuits. She tried, but the lever was stiff and her small hand slipped. An alarm blared as the ship drifted slightly off course. Lyra froze, panic filling her chest. I ruined it, she whispered, tears forming. I can't do anything right. Kane quickly fixed the course, then turned to her. Lyra, look at me. She looked up, trembling. You didn't ruin anything, he said firmly. You made a mistake, that's all. Mistakes happen. What matters is learning and trying again. Understand? She sniffled and nodded slowly. Good, he said, ruffling her hair gently. You're doing better every day. Don't forget that. His words stayed with her long after. Weeks later, the Wayfarer's Hope landed on a quiet outpost planet to restock supplies. The small colony was filled with miners, traders, and travelers. Kane walked with Lyra through the market, her small hand holding his tightly. Some people looked at them curiously. A few muttered about the strange silver child. Lyra heard their whispers and lowered her head, fear creeping back. Kane noticed immediately. He stopped, crouched beside her, and spoke firmly. Listen to me, Lyra, their words don't matter. You walk with me, and that's all you need. Understand? She nodded, though her grip tightened on his hand. At one stall, Kane bargained for supplies while Lyra stood quietly nearby. A group of older children from the colony approached, staring at her. What are you? One boy asked rudely. You don't look like anyone here. Lyra froze, unsure how to answer. The boy laughed and reached to touch her hair, but Kane's shadow fell over him. Is there a problem? Kane asked calmly, his tone carrying enough weight to make the boy step back. No, sir, the boy stammered before running off. Lyra looked up at Kane, her eyes wide. He gave her a small smile. You don't have to answer to them. You are Lyra, that's enough. Her heart swelled at his words. For the first time in her life, she felt her name meant something. That night, back on the ship, Lyra whispered as she drifted to sleep. Good night, Father. Kane froze at the word. It had slipped from her lips naturally, softly, as if she had been holding it inside for days. He looked at her small figure curled under the blanket, breathing evenly now. For a long time he sat silently, staring at her. The word echoed in his chest, stirring something deep he had long buried. Slowly a faint smile touched his face. Good night, Lyra, he whispered back. The fragile bond had grown into something stronger, though neither of them fully understood yet. Kane had taken in a child no one wanted, and Lyra had found in him the parent she thought she would never have again. But far beyond their quiet ship, whispers began to spread. Not everyone had forgotten the silver-skinned girl. Some were searching, and soon, Kane's choice would draw the attention of powers greater than either of them expected. The Wayfarer's Hope drifted silently through the dark between stars. Kane sat in the pilot's chair, adjusting coordinates for their next jump. Lyra sat nearby with a data pad in her lap, tracing letters slowly with her finger. The ship was calm, but a shadow lingered in Kane's mind. He had noticed unusual signals in the last few days, ships loitering too close to their path, coded transmissions not meant for civilian channels. He did not tell Lyra yet. She was learning to laugh again, learning to feel safe. He wanted her to hold on to that peace for as long as possible. But deep down, Kane knew peace would not last. The first sign came at a fuel station orbiting a small red star. Kane docked to purchase supplies while Lyra stayed close to him, her small hand gripping his jacket. The station was quiet, run mostly by automated systems. But Kane noticed a group of strangers watching them from across the bay. They were tall, cloaked in dark fabric, their faces hidden behind masks with glowing eyes. When Kane glanced their way, they looked aside, pretending disinterest. But he knew their type: hunters. As he completed the transaction, one of them approached the counter beside him. In a low voice, the figure asked the attendant, "Have you seen a silver child pass through here?" Small, fragile-looking, with eyes too bright for her size. Kane froze, his hand tightening on the crate of supplies. The attendant shook his head. "No such child here." The cloaked figure leaned closer. "She is not to be lost. If you see her, report immediately. She is valuable, more than you can imagine." Lyra tugged Kane's sleeve nervously. He turned slightly to shield her with his body. Without a word, he finished loading the supplies and guided her back toward the ship. Once inside, Kane launched quickly, the engines roaring to life. Lyra sat in the co-pilot's seat, her eyes wide. "Who were they?" she asked softly. Kane didn't answer at first. He stared at the stars ahead, his jaw set. Finally, he said, "People who are looking for you." Her chest tightened. "Why?" "I don't know yet," Kane admitted. "But it doesn't matter. They won't take you." That night, Lyra could not sleep. She lay awake in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. She remembered fragments, fire running, voices calling her name. Could those cloaked strangers be connected to her past? Quietly, she left her bed and walked to the cockpit. Kane was still there, sitting in the pilot's chair, watching the stars. He turned as she entered. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. She shook her head. "Kane, what if they find me?" He leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. His voice was calm but steady. "Then they'll find me standing in the way. I promised you, Lyra, no one is taking you from me." Her throat tightened. She climbed onto the chair beside him and whispered, "I don't want to be taken. I want to stay with you." Kane placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Then that's exactly what will happen." The next encounter came sooner than expected. 2 days later, as they crossed a quiet sector, an alert flashed on the console. A ship was trailing them, matching speed. Kane checked the scanners, sleek, fast, built for pursuit. Lyra leaned closer. "Is it them?" "Yes," Kane said quietly. He adjusted the controls, guiding the Wayfarer's Hope toward a dense asteroid field nearby. The pursuing ship followed without hesitation. "Hold on," Kane warned. The freighter weaved between massive rocks, engines straining. The pursuing ship fired warning shots, bright streaks of energy flashing past them. Lyra clutched the armrest, her heart racing. "Can we outrun them?" she asked. "Not for long," Kane admitted. His voice was steady, but his eyes were sharp with focus. "We'll have to lose them." As the ship dove deeper into the field, a large asteroid spun dangerously close. Kane pulled the controls, skimming past by meters. The pursuers stayed close, their sleek design allowing them sharper turns. Then something strange happened. As Lyra watched the flashing lights and felt the ship rattle, her fear grew too strong. She squeezed her eyes shut, whispering, "Please stop. Please stop." And suddenly the pursuing ship faltered. Its engines flickered and its lights dimmed for a brief moment. Kane seized the chance, steering into a narrow canyon of rock. The enemy ship regained power, but by then, the Wayfarer's Hope had vanished from its scanners. They escaped. Kane exhaled, his hands loosening on the controls. He glanced at Lyra, who sat trembling in her seat. "You did something, didn't you?" he asked gently. Lyra opened her eyes, confused. I don't know. I just wanted them to stop." Kane studied her carefully. He had seen strange things before. Powers hidden in bloodlines, abilities tied to ancient worlds, but Lyra was different. Her strength came without training, raw and uncontrolled. He reached over and took her hand. "Whatever it was, it saved us. But you need to be careful. Power like that will draw even more attention." Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't mean to. I was just scared." "I know," Kane said softly. "And that's all right. Fear can be strong, but it doesn't have to control you. We'll learn together." Lyra squeezed his hand tightly, clinging to his steady presence. For several days, Kane kept the ship in remote routes, avoiding major stations. He modified the transponder, hiding their identity. He taught Lyra how to run small checks on the ship, showing her how to monitor energy flow, how to recognize warning lights, how to stay calm in emergencies. "Knowledge is your shield," he told her. "The more you know, the harder it will be for anyone to use fear against you." Lyra listened closely, determined to be useful. She wanted to help him, not just be a burden, but despite their precautions, the hunters grew bolder. Messages echoed through the trade networks. The silver child must be returned. Reward beyond measure for information. Kane smashed the console when he first heard it. The galaxy was wide, but word spread quickly. The more people knew about Lyra, the more danger she faced. He turned to her, his face grim. We'll have to keep moving. They won't stop. Lyra's voice trembled. Because of me. Kane crouched in front of her, holding her shoulders firmly. Listen to me, Lyra, you are not the problem, they are. Don't ever believe that you are the reason for this. You are not a burden. You are worth fighting for. Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. His words gave her strength even as fear pressed at the edges of her heart. One evening, as they rested in orbit around a quiet moon, Lyra sat beside Kane in the cockpit. She stared out at the silver glow of the surface below. Kane, she whispered. Why do they want me? He sighed, rubbing his forehead. I don't know. Maybe because of your power. Maybe because of who you are. But what I do know is this. They see you as something to use. I see you as someone to protect. That's the difference. She leaned against his arm, her voice small. Will you always protect me? Kane looked down at her, his expression softening. As long as I live. But even as he spoke, he knew the danger was growing. The hunters were closing in, and soon running would not be enough. Lyra was no longer just a forgotten child. She was the center of something larger, something powerful enough to shake the balance of the stars, and Kane had chosen to stand between her and all who sought to claim her. Their bond had grown strong, but the threat was rising fast. And the day was coming when they would have to face it directly. The Wayfarer's hope floated above a quiet world of forests and lakes. From orbit it looked peaceful, untouched by war or trade routes. Kane had chosen it carefully, out of the way, rarely visited, perfect for a moment of rest. But both he and Lyra knew peace could not last. The hunters would come again. Lyra sat near the viewport, hugging her knees, watching the planet turn slowly beneath them. It looks safe, she whispered. Kane glanced at her. Looks can lie, but it will give us a little time. He walked to the console and checked the long-range scans. Too many signals were already moving in their direction. The hunters had spread their net wide, tightening with every passing day. He had taught Lyra how to read the star maps, so she knew what those glowing blips meant. Ships, dozens of them, maybe more, all searching for one small child. She looked at Kane with worried eyes. We can't keep running forever. No, he admitted. His jaw tightened. We can't. That evening, Kane repaired old weapons stored deep in the ship's hold. Blasters, pulse rifles, shields, tools he had promised never to use again. Lyra watched him from the doorway, silent at first. Finally, she spoke. Are we going to fight them? Kane looked up, meeting her gaze. If they leave us no choice. Her fingers twisted nervously. I don't want anyone to get hurt because of me. Kane set the rifle down and walked over to her. He knelt so their eyes were level. His voice was steady, almost gentle. Lyra, listen. This isn't about you being a burden. This is about people who see you as something to take. They're wrong. And sometimes the only way to stop wrong is to stand and face it. Lyra bit her lip, fear and courage battling in her small chest. Then I'll stand with you. Kane's brows lifted slightly, surprised, but he smiled faintly. Brave words, but standing doesn't always mean fighting with weapons. You have something inside you, something powerful. If the time comes, that might be our greatest hope. The storm broke sooner than expected. 3 nights later, the hunters arrived. Dozens of sleek ships dropped from hyperspace surrounding the quiet world. Their voices echoed through open channels. Surrender the silver child. She is ours. Refuse. And we will burn everything you touch. Kane stood in the cockpit, hands steady on the controls. Lyra was at his side, pale but unshaken. They found us, she whispered. Yes, Kane said. But this time we don't run. He sent a coded signal through human networks. reaching out to old allies, smugglers, traders, wanderers, anyone who owed him a favor or carried respect for his name. For hours there was silence. Kane expected little. But then one voice answered, then another, and another. By dawn, human ships poured into orbit, cargo haulers, retrofitted freighters, small patrol craft. Not a grand fleet, not polished warships, but humans with courage, answering one man's call. Lyra's eyes widened as the scanners filled with green markers. They came. Kane gave a rare smile. Humans don't leave their own behind. The hunters wasted no time. They opened fire, beams of energy slicing through the void. The human ships responded, shields flashing, cannons blazing. The sky above the quiet planet turned into a storm of fire and light. Kane maneuvered the Wayfarer's Hope into the fray, dodging blasts, weaving between wreckage. Lyra clutched the seat, watching in awe and fear as battle raged. One of the hunters' ships broke formation, diving straight toward them. Kane pulled hard on the controls, but the sleek craft was faster, its weapons locked, ready to strike. Lyra's heart pounded. She whispered again, like she had in the asteroid field. Stop! The enemy ship flickered, its engines died, weapons froze, and it drifted helplessly into the path of human fire. A moment later it exploded in a bright flare. Lyra gasped, her hands shaking. I didn't mean to. Kane looked at her quickly. Don't fear it. You're not destroying, you're surviving, you're protecting. Tears formed in her eyes, but she nodded, gripping the armrest tightly. The battle dragged on. Humans fought with everything they had, but the hunters were skilled and relentless. For every enemy ship destroyed, 2 more pressed forward. The hunters weren't after victory. They were after Lyra. Soon, a massive flagship emerged from hyperspace, dwarfing the others. Its voice thundered across the channels. The child is ours. No human can keep her from us. Kane stared at the looming vessel. Its weapons were enough to tear through the human line. He turned to Lyra, his voice low but firm. This is it. They won't stop unless we make them. Lyra's hands trembled. What can we do? Kane reached for her shoulder. You already know. You have power they fear. Not because of what you are, but because of what you might choose to be. They think you're a tool. Show them you're not. Lyra's small chest rose and fell quickly. She was terrified, but Kane's steady eyes gave her strength. She walked to the center of the cockpit, closed her eyes, and stretched her hands outward. At first, nothing happened. Then a low hum filled the ship. Lights flickered, energy swirled in the air. Out in space, the flagship's engines faltered. Shields collapsed. Weapons went dark. One by one, the hunter's ships froze. Not destroyed, just stopped, held in an invisible grip. Lyra's voice trembled as she spoke, not in anger but in truth. I am not yours. I belong to no one. Leave us. For a long moment, silence filled the comm channels. Then, slowly, the hunters' ships began to retreat, dragging their disabled craft with them. The flagship lingered the longest, its presence heavy and cold. But even it turned at last, vanishing into hyperspace. The battlefield grew quiet. Smoke drifted from damaged ships, but humanity still stood. Against all odds, they had held the line. Inside the cockpit, Lyra collapsed to her knees, exhausted. Kane rushed to her side, lifting her gently. You did it, he said softly. Her voice was weak. I didn't hurt them. I just made them stop. Kane smiled faintly. That's more than anyone else could have done. You didn't fight with hate. You fought with choice. That makes you stronger than all of them. She leaned against him, too tired to answer, but his words settled deep inside her heart. In the days that followed, the human ships regrouped. Repairs were made, stories shared. Many of them wanted to meet Lyra, the little alien girl who had turned the tide. But Kane kept her close, shielding her from the crowd. One evening, as the stars stretched endlessly beyond the viewport, Lyra sat beside him again. Kane, she asked quietly, why did they all come? They didn't even know me. Kane looked at her, his face calm but proud. Because you were worth saving. Not because of what you can do, but because you're one of us now. And humans. We don't let family get taken. Lyra's throat tightened. For so long she had been unwanted, left behind. But now she understood. She wasn't alone anymore. She smiled softly, leaning against Kane's arm. Then I'll stay. With you. With them. With us. Kane placed a hand over hers, his voice quiet but steady. Good. Because you're home now. The galaxy was still dangerous. The hunters would return someday. But the bond between one human and one alien child had already changed everything. And in that moment, as the Wayfarer's hope drifted among the stars, Lyra finally believed what Kane had always told her. She was not a burden. She was not a prize. She was family.